To begin the process of your floor, you'll want to space out the boards for your frame to get an idea of the layout and take measurements of each part of the width in your van. Then you can take all of your measurements and mark them out on your boards. It's time to break out the miter saw and get to cutting. And if you have long hair, you might want to tie it back because it looks like I almost got a haircut. I cut my boards long ways first, then I laid them in crossways to get my measurements for each square. I tried to keep these under 16 inches as that is a standard frame for a floor. I then sealed all my wood with WaterGuard to prevent any mold or warping with the wood due to humidity or spills in the van. This takes 24 hours to dry. I sanded the spots I filled with JB Weld so my frame will sit nice and flat. I also painted over any spots in the van that had paint chips to avoid rust. I had to customize some of the frame pieces due to the different grooves in the van so that the frame would sit nice and flush. I didn't want to put any holes in the van floor, so I Loctited the frame in, and this takes 24 hours to dry. Also, don't forget to put weights on it while it's drying. I then began cutting my insulation, and I suggest wearing gloves for this as it makes your skin itch. You'll have to work around different grooves in the van, so I highly suggest getting a contour gauge. This will help you measure around those angles. I then taped a bunch of boxes together and cut around the edges to make the template for my base. Then I traced the template onto my plywood. I cut my baseboards out with a jigsaw. I covered all the seams between the insulation and the frame with foil tape. Then I screwed my plywood into my frame so it's nice and secure. For any sections where the plywood is adhering to the metal, I use Loctite instead of drilling into the van. I then spray foamed any gaps in between the plywood in the van and cut out the spray foam the next day. Now it's time to measure and cut out the vinyl. You'll want to make sure you leave an extra 4 inches on all sides. I then laid in the vinyl and cut around the edges. I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty hard to get it perfectly close to the edge, but no worries because we'll silicone around the edges later. Now it's time to adhere the vinyl to the plywood. I just took this in sections and peeled back the vinyl rather than taking it all out to make sure I don't mess up my alignment. And now it's time for the final touches. I'm cutting and Loctiting in my edging. I then sealed all my edges with silicone to prevent any water from getting down into the wood. I'm not too worried about how this looks as cupboards will be covering up most of these edges. The floor took me about 2 weeks, working on it every night after work and on the weekends. Next, I'll be showing you the installation of my AC unit, my power system, and how I sewed my window covers. See you next time!